All right, happy Monday. You know what that means. The day three pick NFL draft show presented by E2G Sports. Myself, MJ, and new member Mike will be doing a lot of our football writing and leading it and recruiting. So he's new staffer here. I met him at Ladder 133 a few weeks ago and we got into a great conversation. And he's brought some people on board. So very excited. Mike, thanks for joining us for your first show tonight.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I'm looking forward to working with you guys. We're sharing some wisdom and learning a lot more. So let's get going.
Yeah, so we have a standard to reach. The guys who did the WrestleMania preview shows the last 2 days, John Crow and Diaz, absolutely killed it. So we better kill it tonight. That's just a forewarning.
When don't we, buddy? Though we always.
All right, yeah, I know. Let's not be arrogant. Let's catch them.
Yeah,
Keep up with the standard.
pretend like we've been there before. Come on.
So we had a trade today, and I'll make this the first question instead, because I sent an email at 11 o'clock to these guys that this was going to be one of the questions we were going to talk about. And who are some of the teams pushing their chips to the 2023 for the Stroud Young draft? Do we have an answer?
Pretty self-explanatory right there. I mean, the Eagles, baby, they're making moves. It's a brilliant draft trade if you're for me anyway. For them, I'm not really sure what New Orleans is doing, but from the Eagles' perspective, 100%. You know, now they get a one more year looking at Jalen Hurts to decide if he's the guy. If he's not, you know, they've got the added draft capital to be able to try to move up for Stroud or Young. One of the quarterbacks in 23 and just playing this perfectly. To me, brilliant decision on their part, brilliant trade. Acquired, you know, excellent draft capital. Didn't really do too much to hurt them in the short term either.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree. If the Eagles, it looks like they're going to ride it out with Jalen Hurts this year and see if, you know, probably get a wide receiver in this draft or in free agency and see if he indeed is the guy. If he isn't, then obviously, then they're going to be in that market. And we'll see how the Saints, you know, how they end up this season, obviously with Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton quarterbacking their team. So they have a lot of turnover. But you don't really want to do the whole tanking like we did for tanking for Tua, because obviously we're seeing what's happening now with Stephen Ross and the Dolphins. So teams won't go out and say and probably try to pay their coaches. But I think teams like you said, the Eagles, potentially the Saints, the Lions are another team that I would watch out for a guy if all else fails with Jared Goff, which I expect it to be. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams I'm looking at right now that they're kind of still looking for that next guy, and they could be, you know, drafting very high. So we'll see how, and obviously you'll see how Stroud and Young how their 2022 campaigns end up, because we've seen it before. We're projecting these guys very early to become number one, but something may happen where they fall, just like Tua did.
Yeah, and if I could add, I mean, the Texans are in the same boat as Philly with Davis Mills. You know, they got the added capital with the Watson trade. So the Eagles and the Texans are going to be, you know, checking out their quarterbacks, their present guys, and having a year audition to see if they're the long-term answers. So I think those are the two teams that I'm keeping an eye on anyway. And you mentioned the Saints as well, but
would you put the Giants in that category too, with Daniel Jones? They have 2 picks in the first.
That's another one. Yeah, I think
This year they got the 2 picks, but I mean, it depends on what they do. I mean, we'll see in about 3.5 weeks. I could see them being a team that does look to try to trade down. Maybe somebody's looking for Willis this year, and they can acquire more draft capital as a future asset to try to, you know, get their hats in the Stroud Young.
Giants, yes. So Giants, Eagles, Saints,
Seahawks. If they don't take a quarterback,
and the Lions. We said the Lions too.
Yeah, the Lions.
As far as Jared Goff, that could be interesting. But I think that 34th pick for the Lions this year could be a quarterback. I kind of have just a hunch Desmond Ridder is going to end up there. He seems like quite the kneecap type guy.
And the only reason I would disagree on 34, buddy, is I would think they would do it at 32 just to secure that 5th-year option.
Very true.
That's good thinking, yeah.
Very
just
true.
In case.
So we'll move on. But thanks to the Eagles and Saints for destroying my day. Very appreciated. The cards in the mail. So looking at this year's draft, we've done the evaluating. We've gone through everybody. Who's that day 3 pick we're going to look back at and say, what did we miss on this guy? If you want to start, MJ, and then I'll go to Mike.
So I had a couple guys, but one guy I can see being a day 2 selection, and that guy is John Mechie, a guy that everyone's talking about Jameson Williams as that guy that the guy that obviously tore his ACL, but he's he was a top 10 pick before that injury, and he's probably the more prolific wide receiver in that Alabama offense. But John Mechie is getting a lot of play, and I think he'll eventually be drafted in the late second, early third round. And a team like the Patriots are a team that I'm looking at. But one guy I think it's probably one of my position groups is tight end Isaiah Likely, local kid out of Coastal Carolina. I think there's not a lot of. I said this just a couple of weeks ago to Buddy. There's not a lot of star power in the tight end class, and it's been like that for a couple of years. I mean, Kyle Pitts was like the one name last year that we looked at and thought this guy is going to be, he's day 1 starter. This guy can plug and play anywhere on the field. But a guy like Isaiah Likely, we've seen this with late round tight ends. Like we mentioned, like George Kittle's, the Travis Kelce's, and the Aaron Hernandez's of the world. Don't want to mention him that much, but I think Isaiah Likely has that size. He's not a terrific blocker, but I do think he has all the traits that he can become a solid, blocker, receiver at that position. Which obviously we're looking at the emergence of how tight ends are used in offenses now. They're not necessarily just blocking tight ends. They're using they're used out wide, like you see with Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and I think Isaiah Likely, with some work, you may not see it right away, but with some work, maybe in year 2 or year 3, you'll say, oh wow, that was a good steal for whoever would take a guy like him. I mean, obviously he has he's not a polished. He's not a finished product yet, is what I meant to say. So, but I think that's the kind of guy. When I look at him on tape, it's nothing that's very like, oh my God, this guy. But it's just little things you see here and there that I'm like, all right, that could actually work at the next level. And I think a team that could benefit and use those talents that he does have.
I would agree 100% on Likely. He's a guy that I like in the middle rounds that can definitely create mismatches. You can spread him out a little bit. He's not the best athlete in the world, but he's more than serviceable. With his size, he can definitely create those mismatches and create problems. And it does feel like that for the most part. Tight end is a position that NFL GMs are starting to focus more on the receiving than the blocking. You can find a blocking tight end, a Blake Bell, off the street. It's not. You don't have to worry about it so much. So for the position where it's harder to fill, that has more value, and in my opinion, Likely definitely fills that need and fills that role.
So who did you have, Mike?
For me, it's Kobe Bryant, corner out of Cincinnati. I'm seeing a lot of projections with him going round 4, round 5, and I don't understand it. He's got good size. He's 6'1". He ran a 4.54, I believe, was the number at the combine, which at that size is good enough. You don't need to be a 4.3 guy at that size. He reads quarterbacks well. He's really good in zone defense and route combinations, recognition, jumps routes, 10 interceptions. So he's got the ball skills. I think he's a great fit in any type of Dan Quinn type cover 3, a la Trayvon Diggs. He can press, a man press 3 scheme, man cover 3 press scheme. Absolutely perfect for what he does. His arms are a little bit on the short side. Was probably a reason he's falling a little bit. But I mean, he's battle tested. When you're opposite Sauce Gardner, you're getting the ball thrown at you, and he withstood it. He held up perfectly fine. I have a late 2 on him, and if he's going in round 4, round 5, I think it's an absolute steal.
I'm staying in Cincinnati. I'm going with the safety. Plays behind him, Brian Cook. I think he's getting slept on. 2-year player. Played at a smaller school to begin. Waited his time and was just a playmaker and a missile. And just that security blanket at the back of that defense who allowed Kobe and Sauce Gardner and Darian Beavers and the whole crew up front to do what they wanted to do. Because it's that last line of defense was Brian Cook, and he could do that. So I always say guards and safeties, and it's almost getting this way with running backs to the positions that are sliding in the draft. No matter how good you are, you still don't go high just because of the respect of the position. Some teams will even take a corner and, after maybe a year and a half or 2 years, say it doesn't work, Devin McCourty, and move him to safety and be that type of situation. So I like Brian Cook as my guy. Just off the cuff, something that came to me. The edge rusher, Michael Sanders.
Majai.
From Cincinnati. Migel. I can never say his name right. Weighed in at 228 pounds at the combine. What do you think teams are thinking of him? Did he slide because of his size, or are we going to let him go Aaron Maben and just get in a 4-point stance and run to the quarterback?
Go ahead, MJ. If you have thoughts.
You said that was your guy, right? If you can go.
I mean, Majai.
I have nothing. Sorry.
Yeah, Majai. I mean, he's an athlete. Like he's a football player. I think he's best suited as an edge guy in a 3-4. I don't really want him with his hand on the ground. He can get bullied. But he finds ways. He gets low. He gets under the pad level of offensive linemen, and he finds his way into the backfield. More of a disruptive force than a bull rushing edge guy. But Majai, I mean, I think he's going to be a day 2 pick. He's a little bit of a playmaker, and I shouldn't say a little bit, but a big time playmaker. Production numbers are there. I'd be shocked if he made it out of round 2. Really good player.
All right, we'll move on to who is the first quarterback taken? When is it? And how much of I should put how much of a reach is it going to be? But you want to start, Mike, this one?
I mean, to me, it's Malik Willis. He's going to be the first one taken, and it's not necessarily who I would take. I think I would probably lean Pickett. I think Pickett is more pro ready, but Willis has been one of the biggest winners of this draft process. He has wowed GMs with his personality, with his charisma. Obviously, the tools, the arm is enormous. The athleticism is not quite Lamar Jackson like, but it's elite for the position. My questions really are: is he gonna take those tight window throws? He's not gonna have these giant passing lanes that he had at Liberty. It's tight windows in the NFL. Is he gonna have the gall to make those throws when he needs to make them, or is he gonna see the first guys covered and take off? You can't make a living in the NFL like that unless you're in a perfect situation like Lamar. Where the Ravens could run the ball down your throat and it keeps the linebackers one step off guard and it gives Lamar free lanes to run. So I mean, if he's going to go top 5, I'd be shocked if Willis made it out. Detroit, there's rumors that he's they're contemplating it. In my opinion, if you think he's the guy with his ceiling with those athletic tools, you take him. Personally, I wouldn't do it, but I think Detroit may. If not, I think somebody's going to try to trade up. And in Pittsburgh, I know Pittsburgh's pretty far down, but Mike Tomlin, they seem to love him. And I could see them making a big move up a la Kansas City with Mahomes a few years ago from 29 to 10 to do it.
MJ?
And yes, it's a reach.
Yeah. So I do. I agree. I think it's going to be Malik Willis. He's just like Mike said, he has made the biggest – he has won the draft process essentially. Like he had a great combine, he had a great pro day. He's essentially skyrocketed into that top 10. Like if you're not, if you're a team looking for a quarterback and you're into Malik Willis, a la the Steelers, you're going to need to make that, obviously that huge jump. But I see a team like the Carolina Panthers. I don't think the Detroit Lions are ready to kind of jump into that Malik Willis. I think, like I said earlier, I think those are one of the teams that probably knows is probably not there yet. And will likely like to wait another year, push the can with Jared Goff and potentially get a guy in the draft next year like Stroud or Young. So I don't think they will take Malik Willis. I think a team like the Carolina Panthers, who is a team in kind of a weird transition right now. They really don't know who their quarterback is. They have Sam Darnold. They're talking about bringing Cam back, and obviously Matt Rule. He's kind of his days may be numbered. His seat is hot right now in Carolina, so he's going to want to bring a guy that has the ability to kind of make some plays, but can he fit those throws into tight windows like Mike said? We'll have to see in a pro style setting, because even at Liberty you don't really see that you don't really see that much. You see a competition from here to there, but every week is going to be a test for Malik Willis. And if he's, he looks good in shorts and, in tank tops, throwing the football to, guys he knows, uncovered guys, can he do it? Everything's fast. They always say everything's faster in the NFL. Can he actually, become that guy? I don't know yet. I think that, still to be told, but just to make a long story short, it's Carolina, just because it just looks like a Carolina type of pick at that point. And do I think it's a reach? I think with today's day and age and quarterbacks, and this is not not very strong quarterback class. I think it's probably. It's kind of hard. I think it's a reach, but for a team that's looking to that needs this, it's not really a reach, but I don't know. I can't really explain. Yeah. I mean, if it was, a team that had a quarterback, then I'd be like, nah, don't do it. But a team that doesn't really know where it's going, where they're just there. They're not really a team that has any kind of, sauce going right now. So I think it makes sense for them. But do I think it'd be, they'd be smarter to wait another year? Yeah.
And for the record, I actually in my last mock, I did have Carolina as the team that drafted them. So I agree with you that they're prime, and the other team that I could see that's also there in the top 10 is Atlanta. You got Mariota as a stopgap, and I could see them just trying to get their quarterback as well.
Or Seattle too. If he falls to 9, I think Seattle could be a team that may want to get their future, that they may think is their future. But I haven't seen him any connections to Seattle as of yet.
Correct. I haven't either. So I agree.
Yeah, the Pete Carroll type thing might move right there. That's something they definitely do. Anthony Price chimes in. Panthers will be the first, and it'll be Willis. It will be Willis. He's a young version of Cam.
Mm-hmm.
I can see some of that. He doesn't have the size Cam had and the arm Cam had coming out. I'm an Auburn fan, so I remember that 2010 season very vividly. And yeah, the size is one of the biggest differences. I can see what you're saying about the athleticism, but I don't know. I don't know if he's ready for that comparison yet, but maybe he reaches that comparison. But thank you, Anthony. Please continue to chime in. That's what we're here for. We're here for us to have fun, and anybody out there. E2G Sports presents the Day 3 Pick NFL Draft Show. MJ, Mike, Buddy, coming to you live from our living rooms. Sorry if my dog's a little loud in the background. What he does. Next question. Is the slot wide receiver position getting its due yet? Or are we going to be waiting a little bit further? MJ.
So what do you mean by getting its due? Like just in general in the NFL? Or
do you think they're still sliding? Like Renfro still went 5th round when we saw everything we saw out of him at Clemson. Like, how does that guy last to the 5th round? Is it a lack of respect for the position? Or are guys like Renfro finally turning this position into more vogue after we saw years in New England, another team running it?
Well, I think the slot wide receiver position has been kind of since obviously the early days of Troy Brown, guys like Deion Branch, Wes, Amendola, Edelman. I think the teams respect the slot receiver. I mean, they, you see these outside guys like the big Julio Joneses, the Jamar Chases of the world that you want obviously to have that outside threat to kind of make defenses, not be able to stay up at night, but you also need that kind of that chain mover. The guys like we like here in New England, we've seen guys like Edelman and Welker that they're not gonna beat you man to man going downfield most of the time, or not at all. But they'll give you a solid catch. They'll get in the middle. They'll take the hit, and they'll and they'll get you those yards. And I think as far as drafting them so high, I think a lot of the receivers that come in now, the first round receivers kind of are always that Mike Evans, that Jamar Chase type. Those are the guys I think that has that set. Those are the sexy picks. So the reason why guys like Renfro slide down is because teams are more prone to kind of getting that guy. Because Renfro in the first round would be an awesome. I mean, if you look at it now, it's be an amazing pick, but it's not gonna wow anybody. And I think sometimes teams kind of use, and maybe they don't, but I think teams look at the wow factor when drafting some of these guys. I know the Cowboys do a lot. Like they look at for the sexy pick, what's gonna cause more notoriety
Promotion.
to their team.
Twitter.
Yeah, who's gonna who's gonna call Jerry Jones the smartest owner in the league and things of that nature. When in all honesty, not to toot Bill Belichick's horn, he's done it. Obviously, he's bad at drafting receivers, but he's found guys that are not necessarily the best athletes, but aren't afraid to get in the slot, take a hit from Ray Lewis or Brian Urlacher, and make significant strides into a drive. And I think just to answer your question in general, I think that the slot wide receiver, I think it's still, I look at John Mechie. That's a good, I look at a guy like that. That's it's kind of a slot receiver, and he's projected in the third or fourth round. So I think it's still it's getting closer and closer to being respected as far as a top, a first round pick, but just not yet. Maybe not this year, even though there's a lot of guys, the deep wide receiver class this year. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of build off MJ, I mean, I think it's easier to find a slot receiver. So they're not placing as much importance through using high draft equity to go get the guy, right? I mean, think about some of the slots that are out there that have had success even in the last few years. The Jarvis Landry's, the Damon Amendolas, go on. Even this year, KJ Osborne in Minnesota comes out of nowhere and puts up numbers. You can find a 5'10" guy that's got quickness, but you can't find a 6'4" guy that's got 4.4 speed. Though they're harder to find. So, I mean, I don't want to say they're less important, but I'm an economics guy. Supply and demand. There's 32 teams in the NFL, and if there's 25 viable slot guys, you take your chances. You're going to find one. But not every team has that 6'3" guy on the perimeter that's going to go win down the field and win the entire route tree. So just because they're using these slot guys, mostly underneath, they're running maybe half of the entire tree on a regular basis. It's not worth the equity. The drop off. Who's the best slot guy in the NFL right now? Renfro, right?
Renfro would be yeah.
I mean, is the drop off from him to the Jamison Crowders and the KJ Osbornes and Cole Beasleys of the world? Is there? It's you can find those guys in 4, 5, and 6 pretty routinely. The short area quickness guys just are going to slide just because they're easier to build. They're more common.
And obviously, a guy like Braxton Berrios, who is becoming more that slot receiver that, like you said, there you can find them anywhere. I mean, that's one thing obviously the Patriots did. I mean, they're the ones that actually ended up taking Braxton Berrios, but you can find the slot receivers and work them into your offense easier than you can find a number one wide receiver. So, because you can't find a Jamar Chase in the 7th round. Very, very rarely, but you can find a Renfro, you can find an Edelman, you can find an Amendola, those type of players in those later rounds.
Even undrafted.
Yeah, even undrafted. Yeah.
I look at a guy like Slade Bolden. He's probably going to be undrafted. He's probably already signed a contract and working out here.
I saw him the other day. Yeah, I saw him at
Thurman Cadoba.
Yeah, I saw him. He was getting his gains in. Yeah.
He was eating with the scout because they can't afford Davio's food. So
$13 an hour.
Not at 13 an hour, no.
Not at 13 an hour.
All right, even after the trade today, which team do you feel controls the draft at this point? We'll start with you, Mike.
I had 3 coming into this, and now I'm kind of down to 2 with the possibility of raising it to 4. I mean, the 2 that really have the most control are the Jets and the Giants. Two inside the top 10 each. Giants at 5 and 7, Jets at 4 and 10. You have the capital to go up to trade back. You have whatever you want to do. It's all in front of you. So those teams are wise to kind of let it play out. Neither one of them are one piece away. So I don't think either one of them is really in the market to move up unless they really love a particular player. Giants with like a Willis if they really love it. But having those premium picks where teams want to move up to, somebody's going to want to jump up into the top 10 to get their number 1 wide receiver. Whether that's Olave or Jameson Williams or Drake London or whomever. They teams want to go get their guy, and these teams are going to be the ones working the phones because they have the most capital to move around and still have another premium pick to work with. So it's those 2, and then the other 2 that I was kind of thinking about were Philly. When they had 3 picks in the teens, that now it's down to 2, but still with all the future capital added, they're still in the mix. And now the Saints, kind of going back to that trade earlier, they're at 16 and 19 now. I don't think they're done. To me, it's you don't make a trade 3.5 weeks before the draft into the mid-teens because you just don't know who's going to be there. So it's not like somebody can say, they're going to get their guy. They don't even know who's going to be there. They don't know who their guy is yet. So this may be a precursor to them, wanting to move up to go get their guy. Now they got 2 picks in the teens. If there's somebody that falls to 10 with this news, maybe like Kayvon Thibodeau, he seems to be falling for a variety of reasons that we don't really know about, but maybe he's so high on the Saints draft board that he falls to 10. Now they're like, let's go get him. Let's go get our edge rusher. They made a similar move a couple of years ago for Marcus Davenport, where they traded a boatload to move up. They could do something similar for Thibodeau, who I think his ceiling is the highest of anybody in this class. Now the rest of the stuff needs to check out, but stuff like that is worth its weight in gold. If you have multiple picks in those ranges, you can do whatever you want.
MJ.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we had done this show a little earlier, it would have been Eagles, no question. You have 3 first round draft picks. How can you not own the draft? But now you give up that kind of that edge to get that, owning that's essentially the first round of the draft. But I have to agree with Mike. I think the Giants and Jets having 2 picks in the top 10, that's prime real estate to kind of to build the team. And there's so much that those 2 teams need that they can address that 2 positions right away in the draft. And both teams made some, I mean, the Giants not so much, but I think the Jets made some significant moves in the offseason. So to kind of better surround Zach Wilson and progressing in his second season. So I think the Jets, they can, obviously they need a cornerback and they can go offensive lineman as well. With the reports that they may move Micah Becton to right tackle, they may need a left tackle now. And there's guys like Neal, like Cross out there. I always pronounce this guy's name. Ecom. I'm just gonna say Ecom. That if they fall, I was gonna say Onwenu, but I'm like that's Michael. But yeah, that, and then the Giants as well. I mean, if they want to give Daniel Jones as much, as much protection as much, give him as much as you can give him in order to see if he's actually the guy moving forward, or else obviously you're going to have to move on and look for a replacement next season. So I do like where the Giants and the Jets stand there. I hate saying that just because those are the 2 teams that, made our lives miserable as Patriots fans. Not really the Jets, maybe that one time in 2010, but I think they're primed to kind of to make significant changes this year. And they already have, I feel like, as far as Brian Daboll in New York, I feel as that changed with that, that offensive mind, surround the kid. Maybe you get something out of them, a la Ryan Tannehill when he went to Tennessee.
Anthony Price chimed in. He had the Chiefs on that list too. And yeah. I don't know, with 29 and 30, it's kind of tough, but they're another team with 2 picks. But I think that's a use and trade. Yeah. Use and trade, because I always look at that 27 down to 32 because of what you talked about earlier, Mike, the 5th year. So teams want to come up, get that 5th year, give up some pretty good currency, and we've seen it in the past. Teams will overpay to be able to get that 5th year just to think they can get him in the building and make that person a star.
We saw that with Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. They traded back up to 32 to get Lamar Jackson. And,
didn't the Raiders do that with Derek Carr as well, or was he 2.1?
Second round.
He was
2.1. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember that one, but
no, over the years, just some of the guys who, and I think the Bengals are going to be one of those teams that trades out too and gets more currency. I love what they did this offseason, going out and just,
amazing.
Yeah, a quarterback gets knocked a lot. We're going to go buy an offensive line. Like, that's not the old school Bengals.
They usually wouldn't. They would go the opposite. They'd keep their guys and just work with that. Now I like that. They made a lot of progress with Burrow, with that young team, and you saw that you made it to a Super Bowl and almost won a Super Bowl. So obviously your offensive line was the issue, and what better way to get one of the best right tackles in the game and Lyle Collins and put Karras and Kappa around him, and that should
I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed pat where they are. I wouldn't be surprised if Zion Johnson fell to them at 31 if they drafted him too. Cap is okay to me, but I think he's more of a swing guy. I mean, he was an upgrade for them, but if you can lock in that guard spot on top of Collins and Karras, I could see them really going that way.
Since we're jumping down, the Bengals, if they go out and get themselves a 3rd down back, nothing against Samaje Perine, but boy, what Gio Bernard could have done for that team if he was still there this season. Just, they would have been even more explosive.
Can we pencil in James Cook to them in round 4 and just call it a day?
Yes. Yeah, he's on that list of day 3 running backs who will go into the Bengals. Next question. Speaking of running backs, well, we let in good. How's the shared workload backfield change the draft forever? Will we ever see a Keanu Carter number 1 overall? I had to throw Keanu Carter in there. It had to be done.
Appreciate it. It's a name we haven't heard in a while.
Outside of his family, so I don't know who's first now.
Go ahead, MJ.
Okay, yeah. I think it definitely has. We've seen it time and time again in recent years. The workload for a just one back, like say a guy like Zeke Elliott, Derrick Henry, it could work for a long time. It could work for a few years, but eventually it's going to wear off. And those running backs, like we see with guys like Derrick Henry this season and Zeke Elliott and in previous season and McCaffrey, those guys can kind of wear down, especially if you use them. If that's your whole offense, if you're relying on the ground and pound, and so teams that have multiple backs, like I think I look at the Buccaneers. They have a guy like Giovanni Bernard. Speaking of Gio, you got Leonard Fournette, and then when you had Ronald Jones, that worked. You had a mix and match of all kinds of guys that can catch the ball, they can run the ball. Leonard Fournette can do both. It helps out the longevity of each player, obviously, but it also gives the offense a little more creativity of how you can use these guys. We saw time and time again with New England. You had a workhorse like an Antoine Smith, but you also had guys like Kevin Falk that you can use in passing down situations. Corey Dillon, same thing. Kevin Falk, James White nowadays, Shane Vereen, Danny Woodhead. I think, and obviously the Patriots have never, other than Maroney and Michelle, they kind of find their backs later, which I like. I'm kind of like, I don't know if you guys, local guy, Michael Felker, he doesn't really understand. He thinks get your running backs in the 3rd, 4th round. I'm kind of with him on that because we've seen the Patriots, especially in their current state. They have Harris, Stevenson, and James White. Those as far as what they do on the offense, I think those backs could be one of the best tandems in the league at this point. If you look closely around, so. I do think that the days and age of like the Keanu Carters, I think the first round, maybe you might get one late in the first round, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire a couple years ago. But you see Breece Hall is selected as think second round is where he's slated to go, and he's one of the best backs in this class. It's just teams, they think they can find running backs anywhere now, and you can find running backs almost later in the rounds. You can find them as an undrafted free agents. You can find them, if they're cut from a team. There's no need to put all the draft capital into a running back. I think it's when I see teams like when the Cowboys did it for Zeke, when the Giants did it for Barkley. I mean, some of those guys are like generational talents that they can do more than just run the ball. So you kind of have to, but at the same time, it can come back to bite you. And plus, a lot of teams don't want to pay money to those guys anymore. So when their contracts are up, they're looking for top dollar, and not a lot of teams want to put a lot of money into a running back and use that much of a cap when they can put it at into other areas that can help their team win.
I mean, I don't have a ton to add, but I mean, he summed it up pretty well right there. The Leonard Fournette's going number 4 in the draft. The Zeke Elliott's going number 4 in the draft. If you ask the Cowboys today, would they take Zeke at 4 or Ramsey, who would one pick later? Who are they taking? It's 100% Jalen Ramsey. Getting that impact player at a more important position is far too valuable. As good as Zeke was in his prime, and he's still a solid player, but the longevity of those guys is just not there. The defensive players are so big, strong. You're getting the ball 20, 25 times. Your body just can't hold up. So I'm anti round 1 running back unless you're getting LaDainian Tomlinson, and I'm still not taking him in the top 20. So for me, it's 100%. With shared backfields, you're never. I don't think you're ever going to see another top 5, let alone top 1 running back, unless it's somebody truly, truly special.
Especially the league's a passing league now, so I mean they're trying to not shy away from running, but it's more so deep shots. They want to score points, and sometimes
your back has to be able to catch it out of the backfield.
Yeah. You can't be it can't be a one-trick pony at this point.
Yep, and even Zeke is the first 3-4 years of his career he wasn't catching passes. I mean, as somebody who dabbles in the betting world, his over/under on catches every week was 2.5, and I literally hit it like 9 weeks in a row on the under, and it was paying. He's just not worth taking those guys. Yeah. So go get better, equal talent, I guess, but in more important positions, and it's a better way to construct the rosters.
Mm-hmm. A guy I'm thinking of, Melvin Gordon. First round pick, around a few teams. Is he like on the Devontae Freeman highway? Like he's getting picked up in August, then team to team? I mean, have things gotten that bad? And the thing I look at is tread. A lot of tread was used in college. You got a lot of, where if you look at the opposite side, you look at a guy like Brian Robinson from Alabama, who's coming out this year, who's only really had 1 full year. Or you look back at a Myles Gaskin with Miami, who had 4 1,000-yard seasons. And a guy, he's good. He's good. I'm not saying he's not a good player. I don't think Jonathan Taylor has a long shelf life either.
Well, they use him so much. It's like he's bound to kind of like a lot of people are. He's the consensus, obviously number 1 fantasy football player this year. I think he's one of those guys that he could be one of those busts in terms of fantasy. And I don't think he's. I don't. I know. I look at him. He had a great year. No one's taking that away from him. But I just don't see it. Just like you, buddy. I just don't. I think there can only be maybe a year or 2 left of this.
Yeah, he's in the Adrian Peterson style of runner. Bigger guy, explosive. I think Taylor's a better receiving back than AP ever was, but he wasn't used that way. I mean, that maybe part of that is Carson Wentz and his utter refusal to throw the ball to running backs. But I mean, how many times can you just hand the ball up and hope this guy's breaking one from 70? I agree on the Jonathan Taylor. I love the player. Carried me to multiple fantasy football championships this year, so go Taylor. But it's that style of back is. I mean, he fell to round 2. I had him as my clear RB1 when he was coming out for the season in that draft class, but I still wouldn't have taken him in round 1. And obviously NFL teams didn't either. CEH went ahead of him in that draft. I think somebody else went ahead of him too, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it by Cam Akers? The Rams.
It might. They were right around the same time.
Yeah, I think it was second round, right? They were both.
Yeah, they were both in the second. But either way, I mean, just that style of back is just the shelf life isn't there. There's no way. I mean, even though what I know about Jonathan Taylor and as great of a football player is, I still think the top 20 to 25 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's.
We talked about guards and how you can look at guards and say you can find a guard later on or even as an undrafted free agent. I say the same thing. Like running backs and guards, I think those two positions are positions that you can most of the time find in later rounds or undrafted free agents, and they can be legitimate contributors to your football team. So I just think I think the league is kind of veering away from that, and they're looking at all these injuries these running backs are getting, and they're looking at that and saying, do we really want to invest so much of our future on a running back who we may not be able to rely on? And like you said, buddy, the tread, if they're, depending how much they're using college, they may be on just a couple more years because they were, Melvin Gordon. And Melvin Gordon had a decent year last year with Denver. So it's not like he was terrible. It's just how long can he keep going at that rate?
Are they going to just, yeah. Are you drafting a running back for his first contract only? Yep. Looking to get as much as you can?
Yeah.
Out of those 4 years and move on, reshuffle.
I'm not paying second contracts. I'm so sorry for all you New Englanders over here. But Vikings paid big money to Dalvin Cook a couple of years ago. And as good as Dalvin Cook is, I hate the contract. When he's out, which he misses time, semi-injury prone player, but they're not missing a whole ton when Alexander Madison's coming in. So where's the, you can spend that $12 million you spend on Dalvin Cook. You can fortify other positions and roll with a guy like Alexander Madison for his, 4-year rookie contract. And then you flip the bell and you go to Keenan Manu, and you flip the bell and you go to the next running back. I mean, if you get 2 to 3 years out of a running back and you let you take him around 3 or 4, I think you're stealing. I think that you're playing with house money at that point.
I like what the Dolphins did too in the offseason. I mean, they looked at their backs. They said, we need more production. And they ended up not signing this one, back. They got Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds, 2 guys that can do, Chase Edmonds can catch the ball out of the backfield. We know what Raheem Mostert has done in the last couple of years. Hasn't been healthy, but at least you have that kind of, that backup option there. And then you can potentially go in the draft and get one in the later rounds as well. And they can build that offense as well. So you're seeing it around the league. Teams are not relying on one guy anymore. If you look at almost every roster, it's almost, they have a guy that can potentially take over if that guy gets hurt.
I'll ask you guys. I'm looking at Tennessee. Derrick Henry. How much longer does he have at this pace? How much longer does he have at this pace?
I think it's almost probably like a year or 2 away, because when we talk about overusing your running backs, they overused Derrick Henry because that's basically their whole entire offense. Ryan Tannehill, he has kind of rejuvenated himself, but he's still kind of not, he still makes a lot of mistakes. And we saw him even with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown last year, even though Julio, I know, was injured for some games, he still couldn't get them the ball as much as, as you would like him to do, and kind of go away from Derrick Henry, just preserve him for later in the year. And they had to rely on Derrick Henry once again. And, at his size, obviously he broke down. So I don't know if he's, I think he maybe has about a year left. And then 2023, I think they're going to have to look to invest in a backup option this year, because they have, I think, Dontrell Hilliard as his
Dante Foreman.
And Dante
Foreman,
yeah. Foreman left. I don't even know where he signed. He signed somewhere else.
Yeah, he did. I don't think he went back to Houston.
Houston was what came to my head originally too, but I don't think that was right.
They cut a guy I liked a few years ago,
Jeremy McNichols.
Darrington Evans out of App State.
Oh, Evans, yeah.
He was supposed to be that guy, but he never was.
Something tells me that was off the field, because after 2 years, at the time he got cut, he did something knucklehead.
Yeah.
I just got that feeling.
Yep. And with Henry coming off that foot injury, now granted he looked good when he came back, in the playoff game, but at 250 pounds, how much is that foot gonna, how long is it gonna hold up? So, but those guys are anomalies. He's had a long career, but that's not the standard. That's the exception to the rule.
This is the lifespan of a running back's career at this point. What he came in 16, so it's about 5-6 years, and then that's kind of what the most some of these running backs you can get out of, and then you start to see that wear and tear, and they start to fall down.
Especially on a 25 per game carry guy, the quality of the touches. Like if he's getting the ball in the open field and getting hit by a 210-pound corner, I like that a lot better than getting tackled by a 300-pound defensive tackle up the middle.
Yeah. Look at the running backs that are in the league right now. Like you'll be hard pressed to find a running back that was drafted in like 2012, 2013. A lot of these guys, they like obviously Eddie Lacy in 2013. That was more of a weight thing, but you see guys that they're more recent guys that are in the league right now, drafted within the last 4 or 5 years, because obviously they just break down and they're no longer able to get the job done.
Who is the elder statesman at running back? That's something I'm going to research.
James White was 14. I know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Gio Bernard's got to be up there.
Gio Bernard was 14. That's 14.
No, Gio Bernard is 13.
Oh yeah, no, he was on Hard Knocks. Yeah, he was on Hard Knocks. I remember that 2013.
Was he the senior guy in the league?
Scott, because I'm trying to think 2012, and there was no running backs. Oh no, that was what was it? Trent Richardson was the running back.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think he's in the league.
Yeah, I don't
think
think
this past year was AP. Yeah, you had AP from 2007 up until this past year.
Yeah, and then Frank Gore just retired. So.
Yeah.
Those are like you said, anomalies. Those guys
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's research I will do this week. We'll have for next week's show. Who is the senior statesman for running backs at this point in time? Your ideal draft, Mike, number 12 for your Vikings. Where are you going?
There's a lot of moving parts in Minnesota. New head coach, new front office. They brought back a lot of the same guys. The message was when they hired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah as the GM is it's a new regime. It's a new, we're going to look at things differently. But then you re-signed almost every free agent that you had. The only addition of note from outside the organization, in my opinion, is Zadarius Smith, who I think is fantastic if he can stay healthy. Him and Danielle Hunter are going to be a problem for offenses. They brought back Patrick Peterson, but I mean he's obviously way past his prime. They need a corner. And it feels like it's every single year Minnesota's in the corner market. In an ideal world, Sauce Gardner is going to fall to 12, but I don't see that happening. I think he's going to go on the top 5 to 7 picks. The next guy there is probably Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU, and there is a connection. And forgive me, I'm forgetting his name, but Minnesota did hire away the LSU defensive backs coach to be their defensive backs coach. So there's an obvious connection for Derek Stingley. Be hard pressed to not go defense with that spot. Whether it's a corner or adding another pass rusher, Zadarius Smith's deal is essentially a 1-year deal when you look at the numbers, it's kind of a prove it deal, and we'll see what happens down the road. So, maybe they can get a rotational pass rusher for year 1 with the option of being a starter in year 2.
I like that. MJ, what do you want to see the Pats do at 21?
So now, I mean, I know Devontae Parker isn't this all-world guy, but I mean that kind of helps the receiving situation with the Patriots. I mean, he has all the potential to be their number 1 receiver, just as can he stay on the field and stay healthy. So making that move, I mean, I would still if a guy like Chris Olave, Drake London fall, then I would still say, hey, you got to take a chance on one of those guys. But I think defense, with Bill Belichick's track record, I think defense is the way to go. Get a cornerback like a Trent McDuffie. Roger McCreary's a little later. I mean, I could see them going for a guy like that, but you have to go with defense. Bill Belichick has a good track record of drafting defense than he does wide receivers in the first round. And I think a guy like John Mechie is a better fit for the Patriots offense in the later rounds, and they can get that wide receiver, get a corner, a linebacker, or even it's not sexy, but an offensive tackle, just because you don't know the status of Isaiah Wynn. And the Patriots have always had a backup plan when they had a guy that was either retiring or they were going to let go, which was the case with Nate Solder to Matt Light, Marcus Cannon. They had Sebastian Vollmer, but they had Marcus Cannon for a little bit just before Sebastian Vollmer left. So I'd be happy with any of those 3 picks right there. But I'd also be happy with the wide receiver if one of those top end guys is there.
And if I could add on, if I could add on the Pats, I mean, with Isaiah Wynn's situation, when he was coming out of Georgia, he doesn't have the longest arms in the world for a left tackle. I always thought he was going to kick inside the guard, and I think he could be a fantastic guard. So if you go left tackle and kick him in, I think it's improving 2 spots along your line. That's a 2-for-1 special. And the receivers, I mocked Treylon Burks to them before Devontae Parker. He's got a little bit of that Debo. He's so versatile with the ball in his hands. I love Treylon Burks as a fit there. Granted, he didn't run very well at the combine, but that doesn't bother me. His play speed is perfectly fine.
Just pop in that Alabama tape. That'll change your idea on speed.
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap, did he dominate that game? And he was injured. 181 yards.
I know this could be draft related, but what do you guys think if there was as far as draft day trades? Do you think a guy like DK Metcalf can kind of, if he gets traded, he can kind of change that whole draft board as far as the receiver position? Because I don't know why the Seahawks would trade him, but it just seems as though it's kind of leaning that way.
Just from what I've heard, he is so mad about the Russell Wilson trade that he wants out.
Yep.
That's what I've heard.
Heard the same stuff, buddy.
He wants no part of playing in Seattle.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the day he scrubs it all off his Instagram and everything else, but he does not want to stay in Seattle.
I mean, as a Vikings fan, I do not want to see him go to Green Bay with one of those 2 Green Bay picks. That would be scary. And then the other place would be, I would love for Kansas City to trade one of their 2 firsts for Metcalf and put him with Mahomes and let's see what he's got.
The Jets have. I think the Jets have the best capital because they have those 2 picks in the top 10. So if you're going to do anything there, you could just give one of those picks away that cancels your need for wide receiver, and then you can use that on a defensive back.
Yeah, I don't know if he's, given how these teams value these draft picks, it's essentially gold to them. I don't know, after watching what Tyreek Hill went for, watching what Devontae Adams went for, I don't know if Metcalf is getting traded for a top 10 pick, but I never ruled the Jets out from doing anything.
I've seen crazier things. Yeah. This offseason is drunk, so it could happen. This offseason, they can do it.
So I could see Metcalf and maybe the Denver 2 for a 1. Am I saying it the right way? Denver's second round pick that they got in the Wilson trade with Metcalf for one of the firsts.
I could see
you
that.
Kind of get some currency going back.
Yeah, they have so much. The problem is they just signed both Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick to extensions. They got Jerry Jeudy.
No. I totally said it wrong. I said it wrong. I didn't explain it right. The pick that they got for Russell Wilson, second round pick, either 40 or 41 overall. And if you're watching the Bruins game, this game's turning ugly. 40 or 41 overall they got. If they did Metcalf and 41 for like 10.
Oh, yeah.
So Seattle would take over the 10th pick, so they'd have the 9th and 10th pick.
I could see a package along those lines to move up boards. But yeah, I would value Metcalf as a first round guy, mid to late first round pick by himself. So if they want to move up further, then absolutely package some of that to improve that pick.
Yeah. So
replace him
I
with
don't
a
know
guy
why
like James Williams.
These receivers are just obviously it's money. I think it's all money related, and could be obviously Metcalf is a little frustrated. These are top end receivers in this league, and these teams are kind of just saying, you know what, we can find someone else, or we're not going to deal with it, and and they're banking on finding the next guy and hoping that works out. It's just kind of obviously as a Pats fan, you want that. We don't have that style of wide receiver at this point in time. We have decent receivers, but we don't have that guy where you kind of defenses lose sleep at night. The alpha is just like you guys have Justin Jefferson and you have Adam Thielen. We don't have those guys yet. We have a slew of guys who can do good things, who can play well. But
the guy that's
funny
out
to
there,
see.
The guy that's out there, rumored to be out there, that I think is going to be a little bit cheaper than DK is AJ Brown. He's going to stay healthy, but he's been talk about underutilized.
Why are they trying? I only heard about this a couple of days ago.
I don't know the why on this one, but
I can't picture him not being a Mike Vrabel type player with how tough he plays the game.
Yeah. Well, it might come down to he might be just he's a guy that should be commanding targets every week, right? And if he's averaging 7, 4 catches for 65 yards on a guy that can be that dominant, maybe he himself is trying to force something behind the scenes. DK is saying all the right things publicly, defending Seattle, saying he loves Seattle, doesn't want to go anywhere, but we don't know what's really happening behind the scenes. And if you're going about it the right way, then, we're never going to know until it's done.
It's funny because his offseason is they kind of, one thing's being said and another. Like, I thought Russell Wilson, everything was good with the Seahawks, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's gone. And then Devontae Adams, you automatically thinks like, oh, Rodgers is back. There's no way they're gonna let Devontae go. They let Devontae go. And then you would think the Chiefs would want to keep a guy like Tyreek Hill, at least for this season, to kind of compete with all the talent that's in the AFC West now. And they just said, nope, you're gone. So I've seen crazier things happen this offseason. So if AJ Brown gets traded, DK Metcalf, yes, I'd be shocked, but I wouldn't be as shocked as I would have in February.
So just somebody I talked to, the apple of the Chiefs' eye. You're going to be surprised by this one at wide receiver, but when you think about it for a few minutes, it's a pretty good fit. They want Darius Slayton from the Giants.
I see a lot of people don't talk about Darius Slayton, which I think the speed that he brings, and I think that would kind of, now obviously no one can be Tyreek, but that would offset some of the things you've lost, and you've added to that wide receiver room already, and that would kind of help Mahomes and help Kelsey get his balls too. So yeah, I can see that.
I'm a Slay guy. I've loved him since his college days. He that just having the size speed combo, it's hard to find. And when he's been given opportunities, I mean, he's produced with Daniel Jones. What could he do with Mahomes?
Yeah, that's a good. It was funny in Philadelphia last week. There was myself, a Ravens fan, Eagles fan, chatting, and I said, "So what's up with Miles Boykin?" They looked at me and said, "Who is that?" I'm like, "Well, you drafted him in the 3rd round a few years ago," and I've always kind of been smitten about him because of his 3-cone time. I figured the Patriots would be super interested in him, and he is like so far down the doghouse that season ticket holders have no idea who Miles Boykin is. And the Philadelphia guy said, "Well, you can have 2 of our guys, Arcega Whiteside, who can only catch the ball in the red zone, and what's
Jalen Reagor. Mister, I got picked one spot before Justin Jefferson."
Yes. Like, these are guys who are going to be maybe moved for 7th-round picks on draft day. Just change your scenery, guys.
Yep.
Guys who need that.
There's a lot of those guys. There's a lot of guys that you see, and it's always funny because when you hear about those guys, what team's always linked to those guys? It's always the Patriots.
Yeah,
it's like, they can get the best out of him. They can get I always look at these guys like a Darius Slayton, and obviously I always think, oh yeah, the Patriots. Bill Belichick will get the most out of him. So
don't forget Andy Isabella. We hear that name all the time.
We hear that just because he went to UMass, and
he's not a slot receiver. He's not a slot receiver. He's a small Deshaun Jackson outside the numbers receiver.
He's a burner. He's a burner.
He's got to be outside the numbers. They're miscasting him, totally miscasting him.
You know what it is? Why? Because he went to UMass and
the unsaid thing.
The unsaid thing. He's you know what I mean. He's white. All right, I'm just gonna say it. He's white.
You can honestly say that on the broadcast.
Yeah. Okay. I just don't want to offend anybody. He's white.
In short, but I remember going back to the Senior Bowl and they were teaching him the nuances of running out of the slot, and he looked like me out there. He looked like a baby deer just falling. No, that's not what he does. It's incredible. Like we were talking about the slot position earlier.
Yeah.
People really do negate. Like they're like, oh, you can just throw him in the slot. Minnesota, you're trying to throw Laquan Treadwell in the slot when he's an outside the numbers guy. Who was never the same after that Auburn injury. Oh, I remember that, him getting pulled down from behind and breaking his leg, and he's finally breaking out in the year 27 down there in Jacksonville. But there are some teams that do that who are like, oh, I hear people say it. It drives me nuts. Oh, we'll just throw him in the slot and move the other guy outside.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you had Larry Fitzgerald do it so seamlessly after being so productive on the outside. Now the trend is big slot, and
but he's Fitzgerald.
It's just not that easy.
And Anquan Bolding kind of did it, played in the slot with that size. Guy I always hated playing against.
We almost had him. Remember that in 2010?
We almost had him like 5 times.
Yeah,
he was such a pain in the ass to play against.
That was the year. That was the year they gave Julius Peppers a 1-year, like $6 million offer, and he was just like, "What? No, I'm gonna go take this contract with the Bears. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna make $90 million with the Bears. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
yeah. No, it's a fun position and another position. If you guys got a few more minutes, I love these off the ball linebackers in this draft too.
I mean, if I could jump in right here, I mean, Troy Anderson, Montana State.
That's my guy.
I mean, buddy, we talked about him a little bit at ladder 133, but he crushed at 4.42 at the combine, and then today at his pro day, he tested on the short shuttle at 3.99, and I don't remember what the score was on the 3-cone, but his short shuttle and 3-cone were better than any other linebacker at the combine, both of them.
I actually got the numbers sent over to me, but I don't remember if she texted.
I think it was 6.42 on the 3-cone and 3.99 on the short shuttle.
He's rising. He was like early in the draft process. He was like early third, late second. I think he could potentially be one of those late round picks that we talked about, 31, 32.
I think he's going to sneak into round 1, just off this athleticism.
Wildcat quarterback, running back, outside linebacker, inside linebacker.
Yep. You know he understands the game. If you can play all those positions, you know you can see the game. So and then he's got the speed, he's got the acceleration, he's got all of these other things to be an impact linebacker at the next level. And I mean, somebody's going to take a chance on him.
He's got the best nutritionist in the game too. Shout out to Brittany Patera. Good work, bringing him to a first-round pick.
It's all about the nutritionist, nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. She's feeding her secret sauce. She's got a company.
Can I get the secret sauce? Maybe I'll become a first round.
I can give you the link. She'll probably
sign me up.
Stuff out to you, whatever it is, because I want to go outside and run a 4.40. I'll run a 4.10.
But I won't even make it. I'll collapse and they'll call the EMTs. Oh my god!
I'll blow out a pair of Achilles if I tried to do it. So,
Quay Walker. What's our thoughts on Quay Walker?
I will say I think he's more pro ready to be an impact linebacker than his teammate Nakobe Dean is. Dean is raw. He's got all the physical tools in the world, but I would like to see Dean be better in coverage. He flies to the ball and run support, but I think Quay Walker's a do-it-all guy. I've seen him mocked in round 2, and I would almost flip him and Dean, and I think Quay Walker should be.
I think Dean is, he had all the play coming in, but I think he's a little bit undersized. Like I know they put him at 6 foot, but I think some people are saying he's 5'11", which I don't know for like an off the ball linebacker. And it just throws me off the size. But I think Quay Walker is a guy that I've seen a lot of hype for. And I think that, like you said, switch him up because he has size. Quay Walker's, 6'4"?
I think he's 6'4".
You know, you don't see a lot of very tall.
Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tall guy, but I mean,
looking over the line, definitely. Just reading in the backfield, looking in the eyes of the quarterback, like what's going on. Don't need to step stool, the Doug Flutie step stool to look into the.
Don't need to leap when you throw the ball like Doug Flutie.
Good stuff. So that will wrap it up, guys. Awesome show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
E2G Sports Day 3 NFL podcast. And what I was talking about with Marchand, we've been talking about it in the background because I have the Bruins game right behind. There may have been a head hit, and they went after Bergeron. Next shift.
Out of all people,
they went
Bergeron.
Finally, a team brightened up and went after Bergeron. As much as I hate to say that, but yeah. So the rest.
I wanted to say too. If you guys, I kept looking down because last time I was looking up I was looking at a website. It froze on me last week's episode, buddy. So if you saw me I was looking at stuff on my phone for the show. So
yeah,
I just wanted to think I was being rude. I was just kind of like I don't want to.
I'll resend the fine. It's fine.
Okay, yeah, fine. All right. Do I have to go to like an like an arbitration thing or like a hearing?
No. We'll put it into kangaroo court and figure it out for a night out, something like that.
Nice.
Figure it all out. All right, guys. I thank you so much. Good stuff. We're a few weeks away. We'll have product up on E2Gsports.com. For MJ, for Mike, I'm Buddy. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, guys.
Take care, guys.